What's going on, guys? I'm here in lovely Jindabyne for a few days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, doing some gravel riding, some road riding, testing out some of the routes for an upcoming event called Drops and Hoods. Surprise guest on this trip is Mr. Supersapiens of Neurocontinental, who just got back from Spain as part of the Zwift Academy finals. But I noticed on his arm when he got back, he had a Supersapiens blood glucose monitor on. They gave it to him as part of the Zwift Academy finals for some tracking they did for all the athletes there. In the past, I've been a little bit skeptical of these monitors based on a couple of things, especially some of the marketing they've done, how new the sensors are, and some of the lifestyle benefits that they purported to have, especially in that GCN video they did. But what better way to learn more about the sensor and how it has perhaps progressed since that GCN video than speak to someone who's actually used it, who's used it to enhance their training and actually has some good things to say about it.
I have a Supersapiens blood glucose monitor.
That is it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we got this at the start of the camp, and then all throughout the camp, they were monitoring our levels depending on what we ate, when we ate, and stuff like that.
So we'll get into how you used it, but run me through this. So what this number is your live
glucose or blood sugar level.
And then I'm guessing this is like a historical track of it over the day?
Yeah, so I can scroll back to when I started using it. And then I can also pair it with rides that I've done or training that I've done and say how I've measured or how I've fueled throughout the ride. So how they tracked it was standardized for everybody, 2 hours eating before an event or a ride or something like that. So I put 2 hours, and then we were able to snack muesli bars, bananas, lollies, just in the 2 hours leading up, so that we didn't get hungry, but our blood sugar stayed up. Because what was happening, or what happens when you eat, is as you eat, your blood glucose is just spiked, and then it comes like you have to ride the wave. It comes down on the other side, and what we were trying to do was avoid starting our ride or starting it at an event as the sugar came down.
Okay. So it wasn't about necessarily minimizing the spike, it was just the timing of the spike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was the timing of the spike, because the reason, and this is how they explained it to us, was at the start of a ride, if you're feeling average, it's usually because you've eaten too close to the start of your ride. And that means that the reason that is because obviously your blood sugar's spiked and then it's come down and it hasn't been able to stabilize because you haven't been doing anything with your body. It just sits in your body and your liver's not actually producing anything. Mm-hmm. So spacing out your food means that your body can sort of regulate its sugars a little bit better, and then as you start the ride and you take in more fuel, then you're actually going to be starting the ride as it sort of moves up or as it spikes. Yeah.
Okay. So like, I guess for those people that don't have the Supersapiens, what the take home was that actually a lot of the time you were mistiming the meal before the ride. Was that right? So eating too far before the ride, and then by the time you were starting the ride, your blood sugar had already dipped off.
Yeah. So basically we were eating too soon or too close to the ride, which meant that the fueling strategy and how the body actually absorbed all the food and the sugar was not effective at all. So you'd always start a ride or a race, and in the first 15-20 minutes you'd feel terrible because like your body hadn't regulated it yet.
So in the first 10 to 15 minutes, your body was trying to increase the blood sugars to cope with the demands of the exercise. Yeah. Whereas if you had just timed your meal more adequately, your blood sugar would already be spiking from the food you ate, and it would be less of a battle for your body.
Exactly, and that means that it would be far easier for your liver to create the glucose, which means that you'd have more readily usable energy, like straight away.
So what was the big change for you then? Before using the Supersapiens and after, what did you actually eat? How do you structure that 2 hours before an important training session now? What's changed?
Yeah. So it's basically made me think about when I'm eating, and it doesn't really necessarily change how much or like what foods that I'm eating, because at the end of the day, my breakfast is my breakfast or lunch is lunch. So I was having it and trying to space it out. So I'll have 2 hours before, and no, like 90 minutes is like cut off.
So you're talking about a meal. So you'll have a meal 2 hours before.
Yeah.
And And then what? And then you're snacking closer to the start of the ride?
Yeah, so I might have like a muesli bar an hour before, and then I'll have like a banana 30 minutes before. But just making sure that you find that happy medium of not getting hungry, but fueling enough.
Okay.
Then throughout the ride, I'm just paying a little bit more attention. So now I'll gel at the start of a ride, just so that as I'm getting on the bike, the blood sugar is going up. And it's easier for the blood sugar to stay on an upwards trajectory if you're fueling at the same time.
Okay.
So you eliminate that drop off of the food that you've eaten.
Mm-hmm.
So
actually in the ride you found the mistake you were making was you weren't eating regularly enough.
So I'd wait to like 45 minutes to an hour to eat or grab a gel, like on a training ride, where now I'll probably have a gel at the start of the ride, just so that I'm like, my body's prepared straight away. And then obviously every 45 minutes to an hour, I'll have a gel or a bar, and I'll also be taking like sugar water or like a carb mix of some description.
I was just saying, so we covered like, so that's like before, during, but after, like was it useful in recovery from that point of view?
Yeah, so when I was at the camp, we didn't, for me, because I've got like a dairy allergy, I couldn't have like the whey protein because it sent me to hospital. So what they were looking at was what could I do to basically offset that? So instead of like, if we weren't able to eat straight away, how could I basically refuel? And the answer to that was having an overstrength bottle of mix.
Okay.
So instead of having if there was 60 grams of carbs in a drink, and that was 2 scoops of carb mix, have 3 scoops of carb mix to try and offset that. So I'm getting all the electrolytes, getting carbs back in, and then that would do me until I had dinner and was able to get my protein source and stuff like that.
Right, so the other guys were having like a recovery shake with protein and carbs, and you were having a similar recovery shake but with no protein, but just with more carbs to make up the calories.
Yeah, and that meant that like I was also thinking about fueling for the next day. So I was basically helping get my body ready, store that extra carbs, and I was more prepared for the next day.
So in the Supersapiens app then, when you're doing that recovery thing, are you aiming for a certain blood glucose value? How did the app?
So it gives you a baseline, and then we were looking at certain values. So for me, anything under the 70 milligrams per deciliter was like not good. You did not want to go under that.
So you'd finish your ride, you'd be having that mixed drink, and then you'd be checking your app to make sure to keep it above 70. Is that?
Yeah. So like an average reading, like the app tells you everything basically, but the average reading for me was like 90 milligrams a deciliter a day. So I wouldn't want to start a ride under 100 because that means I probably was inadequately fueled. But my performing zone, which is where you were performing the best, was above 140. So when I was just walking around and doing everything that we were doing in between our rides, I was making sure that it was around the 90, just because that meant that I was always prepared to either have to spike or, it was easy to fuel if I had to go and do something important.
Okay, right. And then yeah, so recovery, you would try and keep it above 90, is that right?
I would say, yeah. I was always trying to keep it above 90, just because like you don't want to drop in too low and then not being able to pull it back up. Yeah, they didn't want to see anything under 70.
Right. Okay.
So yeah.
Because so they were saying they didn't want to see anything under 70 because that would mean that's a period where you're not restoring your glycogen.
Yeah.
Is that?
And your body's not recovering.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not like specifics, but
Yeah.
why 70 is the number, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that was the bracket was nothing under 70.
Okay. And now obviously just to keep that in a bit of context, that's in a training camp setting.
Yes.
I'm guessing if you were just doing a normal training week at home on a rest day, you wouldn't need to keep your blood glucose level elevated.
Yeah, that was in a training sense because like if I think back to the week, like that was a lot of sugar. Like that was a lot of like, I probably was having 5 gels a day, and I was having like 3 or 4 bins of mix. Yeah, literally, you could pour it out of me. Like I had a lot of, like, and I was trying to offset it with the like the SIS and the Morton bars that we were like having, but nothing fueled you better than the gels or the like the carb mix, because you were specifically looking for that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were doing, yeah, you do Zwift races, and we're doing workouts and some high intensity stuff. So we're always looking to bit like peak performance.
Do you plan on buying, like, keep using them again? And like, when would you use it? Would you want to have one all the time, or certain training periods?
Yeah, so I've got another one that I'm gonna use, but obviously I'm having some downtime at the moment, so I'm not gonna put it on straight away because it just wouldn't be worthwhile or wouldn't be valuable to me. So I'm gonna use it again, and I'm probably gonna buy another one just so that I have probably like a month's worth, because you can wear them for like 14 days. I'm gonna do it in the lead up to Road Nationals and Santos Festival cycling. Mm-hmm. So we obviously can't race with them on.
Yeah.
So obviously I have to be careful like how soon and when I use it and stuff like that. But in the lead up, so the final training, the final preparations, all to just make sure that I'm fueling adequately for my training sessions, and that so I can recover for the next day. And then so that the lead up week into those races, that, you know, I'm ready to go.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So just, yes, using it at specific times.
Yeah. So the biggest take home message for me was the timing of the fueling. So 2 hours was roughly what I needed, and 90 minutes was my cutoff. But it varied, and that's how we were using the Supersapiens app to look at when that worked.
Okay. Yeah. So last meal 2 hours before, and then moving on to your higher GI snacks, which for you was around
15 minutes.
Yeah, you found 15 minutes was, by looking at the app, the timing of 15 minutes before your exercise, you have your high GI snack, you see the graph tick up, and then you're good to get on the bike because you're riding
you're
away.
on the upwards trajectory.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Cooper. That was really good to chat.
So thank you, Cooper, so much for that chat. I learned a lot from it, actually. And I do think, I have kind of changed my tune in this sense. I do think, based off what Cooper said, from what I've seen in the app, there is potential for the everyday athlete to learn a lot about their training through the Supersapiens. But I think a lot of it comes down to how the data can actually be turned into actionable advice for the everyday athlete. I still think there is some room to go in the app, and something I do think I would like to try out and give a go. So maybe I'll do that down the track, get my hands on one and give it a go. But yeah, thanks again, Cooper, for having this chat, and I hope you guys got something out of this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.